A rate is a relationship. Same idea as comparison. But the important thing is that it's between two connected quantities. Two connected quantities, right? And here are a whole bunch of examples. You can see why they might use the word comparison, because you're comparing how much you get of one thing with how much you get of another. Okay? So we're going to do a couple of things underneath this heading of rates. The first thing is we're going to be converting some rates. Okay? So here's a little subheading. Okay, let's go with the first one because speeds are something we're familiar with. We understand them intuitively. They're quite easy to work with. Let's think about something like, say, the speed limit on most of the roads around here. Well, not around here, but once you get onto a decent sized road, 60 kilometers per hour is how fast you can drive, right? How fast you're supposed to drive. There's the comparison between the two quantities. There's a distance and there's a time. And time usually is the second quantity. It usually is, but as you can see, it doesn't have to be. Okay, right. So we can convert this. We can convert this to something else equivalent. For example, I can write, actually I might just write equals. Instead of having kilometers per hour, I could very easily convert this into kilometers per minute. Kilometers per minute. So all I'm doing is I'm changing one of the quantities over here and I'm substituting it for something equivalent. Okay? So the kilometers are still the same, 60 kilometers, but how many minutes are there in an hour? And there are 60, right? So I'm going to say from this line to this line, instead of 1 hour, that's 1 hour, isn't it? I'm going to write 60 minutes over on the right hand side. Okay, now that's true, but it's a bit of an awkward way to say it. Usually when we have these kinds of rates, what we want is one of these on the end, right? This second quantity, we just want to know how much of the first quantity you get for one of these, okay? So what we want to have is 1 minute over here on the right hand side, right? So what am I going to do to both of these quantities to get 1 minute? Divide by 60, excellent. As you can see, it's a little bit like a fraction. Okay, and what we're doing is we're cancelling, we're simplifying down. Okay, you've got a common factor there, no problem. As you'll see in a second though, they're not exactly the same as fractions, even though they're very similar. Okay, let's do another one. This time a simple one. I think the example that your textbook gives you is example 2. If I count out the number of words that someone can type per minute. Okay, you following with that, right? So for example, I actually wonder what's a decent sort of typing speed. But I'm going to go for, I think they say something like 800 words per, what is it? I don't know, maybe, let's do an awkward number, like 7 minutes, okay? So here's the idea. Suppose you get given a, and there are online things that will do this, right? They give you a passage of 800 words, okay? And then you have to type it out with accuracy, and then we press a timer on you and see how long it takes you to finish the whole passage, right? Okay, so if I want, just like I have here and here, if I want this second quantity for this to be one of them, and that'll give me a comparison between these two. Again, what do I have to do to both quantities to get this in terms of just 1 minute? All you have to do is divide by 7, right? So you're going to get 800 on 7 words, however many that is, okay, per minute. Okay, so you've cancelled. Now that's a bit of an awkward way to say it, so maybe if you have your calculator there, you want to go ahead and calculate this and get an approximation. Maybe we'll do 1 decimal place. I think that would be enough to give you the idea. 114? 114.3. Sounds about right. Okay, there you go, no problem. Now let me push on this a little bit because I said that what we've been doing so far, very, very similar to fractions, but there's some differences, okay? For instance, let's think about, let's go a bit faster, let's go interstate, okay? So this is example 3. I'll stay with speed because we're quite good at understanding this. 110 kilometers per hour is the national sort of speed limit, so if you're on a big highway, that's as fast as you can go, okay? But you can do something to rates that you can't do to fractions, which is, to say 110 kilometers per hour is really the same as saying 1 hour for 110 kilometers. These rates are actually the same, okay? Because they're still comparing the same two quantities. It doesn't matter which way you say it, okay? You can't do that with fractions though, can you? You know, 3 over 4 is not the same as 4 over 3, right? Because a fraction is not exactly a relationship between two connected quantities. It's numbers, and this could mean a whole variety of things, right? But being that we're thinking specifically about rates, we can do this, okay? So, just like before, okay, I want to think about, this is 110 kilometers per hour, and there's one of these over here. So now I want to do the same thing, but, well, how many hours does it take to go 1 kilometer? That's not an unusual sort of question, okay? So what am I going to do? Just like before, I want 1 kilometer on the right-hand side. I'll divide by 110, okay? So here we go. You do this. Okay, now that's true. It's somewhat of an awkward way to say it though, okay? So just like before, this fraction isn't all that helpful, right? We could express this as a decimal, but something that might be even more helpful here is converting, like we did over here, between different units, okay? So instead of hours, what should we put in here? We could choose minutes, or we could choose seconds. Which do you think, just on instinct, which do you think might be a more helpful unit to choose? I think probably seconds, okay? As you'll see why in a second, why seconds is a more natural choice. How are we going to do this? Now, because it's a time, you have an advantage to this, which is on your calculator, you actually have, just to the right of that negative button, in the middle of these grey buttons, you got a button that looks like this. Does anyone know what it's called? It's the degrees, minutes, seconds button. In fact, on some calculators, it actually just says degrees, minutes, seconds, okay? Now, if you do your 1 divided by 110, okay, you do that, and at least on my calculator, it just spits back a fraction, right? But if you hit your hours, minutes, seconds, or degrees, minutes, seconds button, right, like that, here's what you get. This is what my calculator says anyway. It says, after I press this, I see this. Okay, now, degrees, minutes, seconds. Degrees are divided up in exactly the same way that hours are divided up. Namely, there are 60 minutes in a degree and 60 seconds in a minute, just the same as time. Okay. So therefore, how do you read this? What do these three numbers signify? There's the hours, right? There's the minutes, and, minutes, I know how to write. And there's the seconds. Okay, so there you go, 32.73. Let's just do 0.7. Does that sound about right? Sound about right? I think it does, we looked before and we saw, okay, you'll go 1 kilometer in a minute. Over here, this is less than a minute. It's just a bit over half. Well, that's because we're traveling about twice as fast. Well, a little less, but you get the idea. You can see why that's a better choice than minutes, can't you? Because this is still less than a minute, right? And you can sort of estimate that from here, from here. But if you'd gotten that wrong the first time, if you'd done minutes in here, I'm guessing from that it'd be something like 0.5 something, and you'd say, oh, okay, maybe I should convert to a more helpful unit, okay? Now, for what it's worth, you won't usually have to actually pick which unit. If you have a look at exercise 2G with me, they overwhelmingly provide for you the units that you want. All you have to keep in mind is number 1, dividing by the right numbers, and number 2, knowing how to convert between different units of the same kind of quantity, like hours, minutes, seconds, or kilograms and grams and all those kinds of things. Okay?